how would you describe Bollywood dancing?
Well, to me, Bollywood dancing is a real mix of many things. I always like to remember the roots really when when dance came into film. It was all classical. All the people who were dancing, the heroines, the choreographers, all of these people were classically trained. If you look at Gopi Krishna's dances, they're all based on Kathak. You did not have anything that did not look classical. We moved on from there, and when world style started influencing, and we had this huge big disco boom in film dance, it then started bringing new influences in. So today we have things like salsa, we have things like disco obviously, but also hip hop, jazz, belly dancing, all sorts of things influencing Bollywood. But the great thing about Bollywood dance, I think, is it is so accessible. The music is so accessible that anyone who watches this kind of dance wants to stand up and dance it as well. It's, I think, also great for people who are choreographing Bollywood dance because it gives you a huge canvas to choose from and create. You can choose from a variety of dance styles to bring all of those together to create a new piece, and that becomes your own unique piece. How wonderful is that?
So which dance styles, techniques do you include in Bollywood personally?
Well, I personally use all styles. I've studied a bit of belly dance. I've studied a bit of salsa. So disco, everyone did. I mean, I grew up in Mumbai. We all went to the disco every weekend. So all of those styles I would bring in. But I think when I choreograph, although I would bring in these influences, the main influence in all my work will be Bharatanatyam and Kathak to an extent. I studied 4 years of Kathak, moved on to Bharatanatyam and didn't go back to Kathak. But I still remember the moves. I know how the moves need to look for them to look elegant and graceful. And I would say that even if I did salsa, maybe I do it in Bharatanatyam style.
Now, how would you say that now that you have these students, or when you want to spread the word of Bollywood and dancing, how would you market yourself?
The interesting thing about Bollywood dance today is that I don't need to market it at all. It markets me. Because, I mean, I would love to have more classical dance classes everywhere, but every time people approach me, it's for Bollywood dance. I mean, I'm starting a new class in 3 weeks' time, and guess what? We've got 100 people on the register, all for Bollywood dance. We can take only 20. But there seems to be this huge, huge interest at the moment. Obviously, it's also because now we have theatres showing Bollywood films in the UK, so it's become much more accessible. People know what it is. It's not only Indian people or Asian people who know Bollywood. A non-Asian audience also is going to watch these films. You look at the posters. I mean, I see pictures of Shah Rukh Khan in Oxford Street. So people know what Bollywood is, and I think it is very accessible because it seems like a fun thing to do.
What would you say the changes you've undergone during the time you've been teaching? For example, how were you regarded when you first started teaching? Because dancers would be seen as cultural dancers when they first came here, or Indian dancer, or South Asian dancer. So, so what were you regarded as when you first came here?
As a dancer, I think I was probably regarded as someone who came with a lot of culture and with a lot of knowledge about Indian culture. It was also a time, obviously, when there were fewer people doing Indian dance in this country. Now there are many, many more, and obviously many people who are trained in this country as well. But in those days there weren't, and there were still fewer people who were here and who'd had that amount of training in India and who could do full-length performances here. When I turned into teaching, I found that I think it was more to do with my own perspective of how I would be viewed if I became a Bollywood dance teacher, because that was certainly not something I'd aimed to do when I started learning Bharatanatyam. But it turned out that it all seemed okay because I was basing it on the Bharatanatyam.
How do you feel you're perceived as in terms of your teaching now?
I think it's the perception is now of someone that can set dances that people really want to dance. There is a dance style that people want to learn. I'm also very, very aware that because as we know that within Bollywood as well, there are many, many styles. You might have the classical style within a film, or you might have a style that is slightly raunchy. You might have a style that is lyrical. There are many different styles. And I keep my work limited to the styles that I find comfortable personally. If I can dance them, I can teach them. And again, I come back to the point that when I base my work on the classical, it gives me much more satisfaction, and I find that I attract those kinds of students as well who would like to learn that style.
You were saying that Bollywood kind of markets your classes in itself, which is, I think, is a wonderful thing. Now, what do you think has been the positive and the negative, factors that come with it?
Well, I think the positive factors are obviously that more and more people are wanting to be a part of Indian culture, learn about Indian culture, and through Bollywood, we're able to not just teach dance, but also teach social values, the history. I mean, look at Jodha Akbar at the moment. We are talking about history. So if we do that kind of dance, then, I will have to explain why that's happening. And, I did Vari Vari, for example, and we had a talk about the British in India and that history. So it's important to link in other things into the dance class as well and take it a bit further. What I find a bit distressing is that Bollywood has far overtaken the classical, and that I'm not able to deliver as many classical dance classes as I do Bollywood. I mean, every time I try and set up a Bharatanatyam class, there's interest, but certainly not as much as in Bollywood. I mean, I could teach Bollywood dance all through the week. I could do 40 hours a week, but for Bharatanatyam, I will have to work very hard to get to that standard.
You were also saying earlier on in our conversation about sort of instantness.
Yes.
Do you feel that that's got something to do with it? About a good, because again, a classical form is rigor. It requires time and patience and training and do people think that Bollywood doesn't require that, or how would you explain that?
I think basically that Bollywood is far more popular than the Bharatanatyam because firstly people see it on film and they can see what it's going to look like. We don't see enough of classical dance here. Unless you make an effort to go and buy a ticket in a theatre and watch a performance, you're not going to know. People often don't know what the difference between Kathak or Bharatanatyam is. So it's not immediately accessible. They'll say, oh, do you teach classical dance? Oh, what kind? Is a question that few people will ask. They'll say, oh, do you teach classical dance? And that's it, because for many people, classical dance is one big umbrella thing that, is one dance. But Bollywood is easy to see. Secondly, it looks glamorous. So for young people, it seems like a very glamorous style to do. And of course, it's very instant, which I think is one of the main things that our young people face today. Everything is very quick, everything is instant. You can learn a whole song in 5 weeks' time and you can perform it in 6 weeks' time. Whereas for Bharatanatyam, you know that in 5 weeks' time you would probably be doing just Tattaru properly. So, the comparison is huge and you would probably not get instant results in your classical dance class, which many people find a bit off-putting probably.
But would you also